Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another edition of the Pac-12 Chat Show Live here on the Voice of College Football Network. As always, I'm Tony here with Tim, Rick, and Chris, and we're here to chat about what a week it's been and what a week it's going to be in the Pac-12. How are you guys all doing today?
Doing great, Tony.
Tremendous.
Good, man.
What's up,
Except that I'm exhausted, like we just talked about. So if I just start snoring in the middle of this, I apologize in advance.
All right, don't laugh, because good friend of the show, Voice of College Football Master Joey Foster, once asked me to go on an Alabama Guys 24-hour live stream, and an hour and a half into it that I was supposed to help out with, the guy fell asleep and started snoring. So loudly, the host. So it was kind of entertaining. Anyway, on to the Pac-12, where we know that nothing puts you to sleep about the Pac-12. So, guys, what a week this was. Once again, news of the week, Pac-12 remains the number one conference in the country with 4 of the top 10 teams. That's insane. We have 4 of the top 10 teams. What do you guys think about this? And updated potential playoff bracket here, hypothetically, of course, because it doesn't start until next year. But an updated potential playoff bracket from Andy Staples on what it would look like. Guys, this is quite a year for the Pac-12.
Yeah, before derail, I want to get ahead of the derail narrative right now that I think the SEC has more teams in the top 25, but they snuck them all in at the back, right? Like it was like Ole Miss was like holding the door open, and they like got their friends, in the back door at the party, and like snuck them through.
Yeah, we've seen Florida and Mizzou and Tennessee.
But 4 of the top 10 is pretty good.
Yeah, last week I'd mentioned that Fresno State should be ranked. They've actually have 2 Power 5 wins on the road. It's good to see them rolling at 25. I think it's great that you have the Pac-10, 7, 8, 9, and 10. The SEC, I don't know how you have Tennessee 21 and Florida 22. UCLA should be up there. They lost. Hey, if I'm just going on what you see here, I mean, if Florida goes in and loses 24-11, and then drops out of the out of the rankings, and so what? They beat Tennessee. We don't know what Tennessee is, and UCLA lost 14-7. So it's questionable, but it's early, and they keep on rolling. There's going to be some more big matchups this week.
If UCLA deserves it, they'll earn it over, not this week, obviously, because we have a bye, but the next 2 are Washington State and Oregon State. So if they deserve it, they'll earn it. But thankfully, we're on a bye, so I don't know how much I have to talk about how bad our offensive line looked.
You get a little bit of a break. Well, one thing that has been interesting, guys, another thing this week is, as we've looked on it, there has been a resurgence in the likely potential reality that we may see the next 2 years of a Pac-2 conference with Oregon State and Washington State literally as their own conference. Any thoughts on that potential wild shenanigan?
Do they really get to cash a check for $160 million?
That is up for debate. However, changing the current playoff structure requires unanimous consent, and I understand there is not unanimous consent.
So should Cal have never left?
I mean, I guess it's up. Everyone's up to their own opinion. I think you need to get to the conference you need to get to.
Fair enough.
Long-term strategically.
I heard.
Go ahead, Rick.
I was going to say, I heard that ESPN can lose quite a bit of money to these 2 teams. It might be better for them to figure a way to get to the Big 12, and maybe that's going to have to be negotiated. But technically, with the College Football Playoff Committee, in the next 2 years, they have the chance. That's what they fought for, getting the temporary restraining order to still be a conference, even with the 2 teams. They have 2 years to get back up over 6 teams, and the money that is going to be divided and when they go to 12 teams, it's estimated to be $320 million per conference. It's not per team in the conference; it's per conference. So if you have those two teams, that's $160 million for each of those teams. And from what I understand, it's got to be a unanimous vote. And Washington State President Kirk Schultz is on that college football playoff committee. So
He's
he
on the
might
committee.
be a dissenting vote. So who knows? It's going to be it's part of conference realignment, and maybe at the end of the day, Washington State and Oregon State hold the cards and have the leverage. We'll have to wait and see.
It's going to be interesting. So hold on to your hats and we'll see what happens. But moving on, there are games this week, gang, which is going to be pretty fun what we've got going on. And the first game of the week is, I think, a really big one. Two big ranked teams in a wild Friday night Pac-12 After Dark showdown from Reser Stadium. We've got Utah. They're not at home. They're not at altitude. They're not in front of the Muss. Guys, what's going to happen when they roll in to see Benny Beaver?
Chris, why don't you start us off, man? Lead off.
You're gonna make the guy with no notes who's exhausted right now lead us off instead of fill in with Buffer or whatever. No, that's fine. I'll so
Okay.
like I haven't had a chance to like dig into news as much this week, but I can't imagine that Rising's playing, especially when they have a bye after this. So I would, and I mean, unless he's healthy, if he's ready to go, he's ready to go, right? And he'll play. But I would think that it seems like they're going to leave him out until after the bye. Larry can come on later and tell me how wrong I am if that's not the case. Utah's defense, I hope they're the best defense in the Pac-12 because, boy, did they make our offense look very, very bad at UCLA when we played them at Utah last week. I think that our defense is improved, but I do kind of think Utah has some issues with a rising list led team. I think they could have even done more with who they had playing against UCLA. I was surprised that like that quarterback is fast as hell and he like never really tried to carry the ball against us. But they did what they had to do to win that game, and they dominated that game. I don't get into like ifs and could haves. Like we could have stole it maybe if certain passes don't get dropped and certain things don't happen, but they were definitely the better team. And made our offense look real bad, especially our offensive line. But yeah, in terms of like prediction or whatnot, I think that the only thing I have to go off of is the meme of Road Utah being a completely different team than home Utah. And I'm going to take the Beavs to bounce back here in the last week of a rising list led Utah. And then they come storming back in October with a rising. But I think this week they lose to the Beavs in a very close, very good game, where I think the Beavs O-line probably looks a little bit better than the UCLA O-line did. Although DJU had his own struggles last week. So who knows if the Oregon State offense is as good as they might have thought a few weeks ago.
Tim, do you want to go next?
He may have stepped away for a minute.
Oh, okay. I don't know if you can call this a must game for the Beavers being still in September, but I'm going to call it a must game for the Beavers. You do not want to go 0-2 in conference play, losing to Washington State and Utah. With at the end of the year, you still got to play Oregon and Washington. And so even if you were to lose this game and then by some chance beat Oregon and Washington at the end of the year, you're still sitting there with 2 losses, and that might be 1 loss too many. So I think that Oregon State is going to come out and play with fire. That place is going to be rocking, and Utah is going to be tested. If they are a championship team, which they are, they're defending back-to-back Pac-12 champions. You have an 18-year head coach. You have a system. I think we'll find out, obviously, if Cam Rising, I think he's going to be a decision at warmups. I think they're going to see if they can get him to go, because at the same time, Utah does not want to lose this game. They've got a lot of games down the road, but the question is going to be, are they going to be able to execute on the road with their third and fourth string quarterbacks? That's to be seen. And they've got a tough defense. They've got a very veteran team. And you'd think in the 18th year of Kyle Whittingham, they would be able to win these road games. And we're gonna see. That's the whole thing. I think Oregon State is going to be playing for touchdowns. This is a showcase game for DJU. I have the Beavs winning 28-20. Tim, what do you got on this game?
Nope, you're on mute, Tim.
I was really disappointed in the defense. Again, I really bought the hype of the Beaver defense. The good news for the Beavs, though, is that the Utes have an even worse offense. So with this one, I'm pretty confident in saying that especially since it's at home, that this was, I would give this one probably to whoever was at home. So I'm going to give this one to Oregon State at home, because the Beavs are struggling on offense, but the Utes are even worse. And I don't believe in the Beaver defense again, to shut teams down. But we saw last week with UCLA that Utah just does not have anything really offensively. So I'm going to give this one a slight edge to the Beavers at home.
You guys are making me uncomfortable here, because if we all four of us predict the Beavers, that means the Utes are going to win. And I've been torn on this one too. Going back and
fall
forth
on the sword, please.
Well, taking a look at it, I can't get over. There's really been two Utahs, almost like two Utahs offensively and two Utahs defensively. I mean, what we saw at Baylor, what we saw against Florida, what we saw against UCLA, what we saw in their other game. So I don't know what we're going to get from Utah. Utah has the capability to win this one and win it solidly, but they're going to have to play better than they've been playing on both sides of the ball, I think. And so with that, Ian Reeser, as a USC Trojan, I can tell you weird things happen at night in Corvallis. This is a Friday night game in Corvallis, Utah. Sorry, guys. I got to go with the Beavs.
Oh, Chris, we almost had unity there.
We did have unity, no?
Yeah, we got all four of us.
Oh, you're in. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, sorry. My bad.
All right. Next up, guys, a battle of I have no idea what to expect. We've got Cal Berkeley and Arizona State heading up to the land of Oski. What do we expect to see out of this puppy?
I'll go real quick because nobody else wants to talk about Cal. No, I'm just kidding. I think it does make a huge difference that Dillingham is calling plays now. It's interesting to me that he wasn't to start, because if you're hired as like the young head coach, dude, he's not hired for his administrative capacities at this point in time, right? He's like hired because he knows how to construct an offense. And I think that did make a difference last week when they played against SC. How big of a difference, I think, remains to be seen. That being said, like Cal has the quarterback situation is so weird to me, because like anytime I see them play, the kid from TCU looks way better than the other kid, but they're trying to claim that and he was supposed to be the starter to start the year, and then he got hurt, and another kid played, and now they're acting like they can't name a starter. And I don't know if it's gamesmanship or what it is, but like I feel like the kid from TCU has to be the guy. Although Arizona State was improved last year, it's Oski's birthday. I mean, last week. It's Oski's birthday today, just so everyone knows. So
Happy birthday, Oski.
Cal's going to throw a birthday party and take care of business. Take care of business up in Berkeley and beat the Sun Devils by about 7. Oh, they got a new kicker too. The guy that was like started the year like 3 of 9 and like missed a bunch of kicks versus Auburn and whatnot. New kid kicking for Cal. So, hopefully they don't leave like 16 points on the board again. They're off the board.
Well, the good news for the Bears is that we've seen probably every trick play that Dillingham does have. They still have an issue at quarterback. I am a believer in Scatto. That guy's a tough runner, but I also believe the defense that Cal has. But the thing is, this year it's different. Is you guys, I don't know if you're sitting down, and I'm not. Thank God for this one. But Cal actually has an offense. They put up 500 yards against Washington, and we know they're going to play defense. But we also now know that they have an offense. And,
do you know if Ott is back, by the way? Sorry to interrupt you.
What's that?
Do you know if Jaden Ott is back yet?
I do not know.
I'm going to look. I'll look up. Sorry, keep going. I apologize for interrupting.
But the point is it's not like they have great skill guys. I like the receiver. Who's their leading receiver, Chris? I know you know.
No, I don't.
Jeremiah Hunter.
He's having a season, and I thought they really were going to have trouble with the passing game and drop off, and it hasn't been strong, hasn't been stout, but it's enough. And whatever they're doing there, I don't even know their why they caught fire this way. It's come out of nowhere. So I'm going with Cal all the way. I'm not even worried about this one. Arizona gave USC. USC was probably its own worst nightmare in that game. I think they're getting a lot of run for the fact they scored 28 points and all that stuff, but some of those 7 were handed to them at the beginning of the game. And again, a couple of missed tackles. I think that Cal played better defense. And again, they've discovered an offense.
So Ott did play against Washington. He had 11 carries for 40 yards. So whether or not he's 100% back and healthy, you have to think that he had to give it a go. It was a big game. Cal's a little bit hard to figure out. Like Tim said, they do have an offense. They have showed the offense. Obviously, against North Texas State, they went there they scored, I believe, 59 points, and they put up 31 last week in a losing effort. I think 31 or 32 points, a losing effort up in Seattle. So both road games where they put those up, but it's kind of hard to understand them hanging around with Idaho and then only scoring 10 points against Auburn. So they've always been known for their defense under Wilcox. They are showing some signs of offense, but again, like you guys have mentioned, the quarterback situation between Finley and Sam Jackson IV is inconsistent, but they have the pieces there. And, with Jeremiah Hunter. So I just see Cal winning this game against ASU. I just don't trust ASU on the road. So I have Cal winning by 4 points in a close one. Tony?
So I felt really good about ASU watching them against USC. I thought they looked a lot better. I thought Dillingham calling the plays really made a big difference. They looked way better than they looked previously. But I understand even Drew Pine is out, which has them. I mean, whoever their scout team quarterback is, whichever freshman they've plucked off the intramural leagues is going to be starting a quarterback for them.
I thought it was going to be Bourguet or whatever his name is.
Bourguet back?
Yeah, that's what I thought I read earlier this week. Yeah.
Okay.
And then after that, yeah, it's like whoever the fourth or fifth string guy is. Yeah.
So they've just had such chaos. So, with that and that uncertainty, if it was Drew Pine, I might lean towards ASU. But with that, Cal is better than they've been. And so happy birthday, Oski. I think we're giving you the win.
Does anyone think Cal actually covers? It's 12.5, which seems like a lot to me.
Does feel like a lot for them.
That's a lot.
They might, but they're one of those teams I think this year that maybe anything can happen.
That's fair.
They could lose this game. They could torch them. Who knows? If it were in the desert, I might lean towards ASU too. But we'll see. Zona Tucson makes a good point. He says Jade Knott's going to torch ASU's defense. He probably will. All right, another one. Guys, Oregon and Stanford. Now, this is a cursed game for Oregon. Going into Stanford Stadium is Oregon's nightmare. Terrible things happen to Oregon there. What do we think is going to happen in this game?
I'm not sure that's a genuine serious question, Tony. I think this was over early. I think that the Ducks roll.
Yeah, I mean, people forget that even that terrible Stanford team, like people can go in there and sleepwalk. Oregon State was kind of fortunate darling, Oregon State last year was kind of lucky to like win that game against Stanford last year. Granted, I mean, obviously it's like a whole new situation now, new coach, whatever. But I think some people can like fall asleep going into that stadium. I know Oregon, obviously dominated Colorado last week, like I think most of us expected in this sphere. I could see them just like from an energy perspective. I don't know. It's hard to get up every single week. I don't think the final score will be close at all, but I could see some silly things happening for like half a quarter. But yeah, no, Oregon wins easily. Like there's just way too much of a talent differential here for there to be any kind of serious talk about an upset, in my opinion.
Yeah, 100%. It's going to be. This isn't the Stanford team that would give Oregon fits and win by field goals and in overtime and keeping them away from championships. I don't need to remind Oregon fans of the pain. They carry it. I believe their kicker Maldonado missed a couple of key field goals against Stanford, but this Stanford team is not competitive this year. And I agree with you, Chris, that they're going to go in Oregon, and it's going to be, there's just no energy in that stadium. You're coming off of a huge win. I think it was the most watched college football game last week, if I'm not mistaken. Was it close to 10 million? If not, I think 10 million viewers watching Oregon and Colorado. So it'll be close for about a quarter, and Oregon will wake up, and the next thing you know, they'll rattle off 24 straight points, and they're going to beat them by 28. Tony?
I think they're going to beat them by more.
Wow.
I know this is cursed. I know that Oregon, this is a curse for Oregon, but I think at the same time, they're going to do exactly what USC did to Stanford, and it's going to be brutal and ugly. My apologies to our friend of the show, the tree, the multiple trees that are friends of the show, but I think this one's going to get real ugly. Mikey G says it's a trap game, but Dan has those boys locked in. Yeah, I think this is where Oregon exercises those demons and gives Stanford a beatdown. But we do want to say thank you also to Slap Happy for the super sticker. Thank you, Slap Happy. Always great to have you in the chat. Good friend of the show. We appreciate that. And thank you to everybody. And everybody, just real quick, and we know it sounds dorky and everybody asks, you guys could just take a minute and click the like button, whatever device you're on, if it's your phone, your computer, whatever, just click that like button, subscribe to the channel if you can. It really makes a huge difference for the community. So we personally appreciate it, and Mark Rogers and the whole community appreciate it as well. So thank you guys for that. All right. Another big game, because Notre Dame is, of course, friend of the conference. We always include them. Guys, Notre Dame is going to Duke. College Game Day is going to be there. Are Riley and Mike Elko going to be able to take on Sam Hartman and Marcus Freeman? Or is this where Duke's magical run comes to an end?
I think it's really impressive. I know Clemson is 2-2, but they might be one of the best 2-2 teams in forever. They're I think if you're power rating them versus where they should be ranked in an AP poll, I still think Clemson's a top 10 or top 15 team. So what Duke did in that game was super impressive for them to win. But I think they caught lightning in a bottle in that game a little bit, because the rate at which Clemson was, in the red zone and came away with 0 points multiple times. And still even in the fourth quarter, early in the fourth quarter, had a chance to turn that game around and win it. I don't think that Duke is on the same level. And I think I don't have the exact numbers ahead of me, in front of me, but I think Duke's weakness is the run defense. And if there's one thing that Notre Dame loves to do, it's run the ball with that huge back that they have. That's an absolute stud. So even though on the road, I don't think lightning strikes twice for Duke at home. I don't think they pull off the other big upset. I think Notre Dame goes in, runs the ball. I think it'll be a great game, but I think Notre Dame runs the ball and takes care of business.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a defining game for both of these teams. Certainly, Notre Dame can't afford another loss, coming off that heartbreaking loss at home to Ohio State, and Morgan Freeman's taking a lot of heat, and rightly so. Made some errors at the very end there, and yeah, the running game is essential. It's crucial. It's what Notre Dame is, and then you have Hartman. I think they have too much for Duke. And, Duke did beat Clemson on that first night, but their other wins against lesser opponents, including a win over UConn last week. So it's crucial. Notre Dame is going to go there, take care of business. I see Notre Dame winning by 10 points.
Yeah. Is that game at Notre Dame? No, it's not. It's not Notre Dame. It's on the road.
It's at Duke.
It's at home?
No, they're playing at Duke.
They're playing in Durham. So,
yeah.
The only issue with this game is the fact that is Notre Dame going to play all 11 guys on defense. If they played 10 guys on defense the entire game, I would give Duke a shot. But I think that they're going to get that 11th guy on, and I think they win this going away.
That's great.
That's probably what the media. That's probably what the media bias was, right? Like they ranked them 11th in the poll intentionally, so that like the numbers there on the scoreboard as a reminder for them all game.
Oh, that is brilliant.
People are supposed to be on the field, right?
Oh yeah, that is good.
That's really funny. Oh, the jokes write themselves. I love it, guys. Yeah, I think you guys are right. I really think Duke is doing some really special things. Mike Elko's been absolutely amazing. He's given that program just such a fantastic resurgence. But I think Notre Dame's got a really good team, and I think that they pull it off in the end. But I think it'll be closer than a lot of other people do. So I got the Irish winning. All right. Next up, Washington has always been cursed in the desert. I don't think they've won in Tempe since like 2001. I'm not sure when they last beat Arizona down there. But Washington is headed on there, just like USC, done with its curses in the desert. Washington is headed for its last desert showdown against Arizona. Guys, what's going on with the dogs and the cats?
The one strength that Arizona had was their offense and sputtering, and they're actually having issues on offense. I don't see that defense. I think they're still the same defense they were last year. Matter of fact, they lost a couple of their biggest pieces to USC, so I think Arizona still continues to struggle on defense. Washington still continues to kick ass on offense, and this thing's over early.
Should their starting quarterback still be their starting quarterback, even if he's healthy?
Probably not. For a lot of reasons, including reasons.
Do you mean on-field reasons or ethically?
Yeah.
I already have an answer for myself ethically, but on the field. I think he might. I don't know. I like it might be time for Fafita to step up. But the one thing that I'll point out, and I don't have the exact number in front of me, but when a top 10 team comes to Tucson in the last like 13 games or so, I think Arizona's won like 6 of them. So it is a place that a lot of top 10 teams have gone to die. That being said, I think that Washington, I don't know that I'm, again, like, so like when the power ratings come out or whatever, I don't think that Washington necessarily is the best team in the conference or wins the conference, but I do think that they have played the best football till this point in time. And I think that they continue that and beat Arizona rather easily.
And the last time that Washington went into Tucson and won was 2014. They've lost the last 3 times they've gone down to Tucson. That game was close. They won 27-26. But that doesn't really mean anything because this Washington team is totally different. And they are just diversified offensively. They are not questionable on defense, but Arizona is not going to have enough to keep up with them offensively or defensively. And it'll be close for a while, but I have Washington winning by a touchdown.
That's real close. Weird things in the desert.
Tony, what do you got?
Yeah, this is another one. Washington is so good. I mean, I love what Jed Fish is doing. Back the A, bear down, but bow down is too much for bear down in this one. And I think we're all going to be bowing down to Washington by the time this night's done. So, arf with dubs. I got Washington by a bunch.
Tim, are you going to admit it?
Arizona, Tucson, I like you guys a lot. I just think Washington's really scary good.
I don't mind the football team because they suck. The basketball team is what bothers me because they think that they're UCLA and they're not. That's really my issue. But beyond that, I'm good with Arizona.
Wow, thanks. I didn't even have to pay you to say that. I appreciate that.
Numbers are numbers, right? It's easy.
I always tell my Arizona friends, I'm like, guys, let's just talk about UCLA. We all agree on that. All right, gang. Now we've got an interesting one. Big noon kickoff, believe it or not, 9 a.m. Pacific time. USC is playing in its first Big Ten kickoff against primetime Colorado. What is going to go down at Folsom Field? I understand it's going to be a celebrity-packed house, and the whole nation will be watching. What are they going to see?
Here, I'll get out of the way. I'll go and then I'll let you guys pontificate. But I think that Colorado, it's at home versus, like, if we're gonna play like transitive property compared to Oregon and people try to make judgments out of the games the two teams have, I think it's silly. But I think that Colorado being at home, I think that you get a bit of a test for SC's defense, right? Because I think there's a lot of people asking a lot more questions after last week than there were the first 3 weeks. And Colorado has shown an ability to throw the ball around and move the ball on people until that Oregon week happened in the first half of Colorado State to an extent, right? SC wins easily, but I'm kind of interested to see how many touchdowns Colorado puts up, if it's like 1 or 2 or if it's like 3 or 4. I think that's probably the most interesting part to me.
I think this game, it's about coaching. And if you take a look at the game plan, this year USC has more depth in all of their rooms on both sides of the ball, including special teams. And you take a look at Colorado, they don't have a running game. They've given up 206.5 yards per game. That's a 5.4 yards per carry average. And they've run the ball just under 59 yards a game. So they're giving up 200 yards a game in running the ball. USC has a deep running back room. The key here is, yes, they're going to be at altitude, but we have the depth. Run the ball, rotate the running backs. The only way that Colorado is going to beat you is with Shedeur Sanders. And he's missing Travis Hunter. He does have some capable wide receivers, but the less he has the ball in his hands, the less damage he can possibly do. I like USC's defensive line. They have more depth. They just had 8 sacks last week. I believe they're the number 3 team in the country in sacks. Shedeur Sanders, that offensive line hasn't protected him. He's been sacked 22 times, and he's taken a lot more hits. So I'm interested to see what the offensive game plan is. Let's run the ball to set up the pass. Let's control the clock. Let's take the crowd out of it. It's a business trip. Take care of it. I see USC winning by 17 points. Tim?
Well, I mean, I've made this clear for about 3 weeks now. I made this clear for a long time when all the hype started with Colorado that this, it's amazing. You can at the same point in one time, you can say, hey, it's amazing what Sanders has done at Colorado and he's building something great there. But at the same time, say it's not this year. And this year, it's not going to be the year for Colorado. USC is going to handle this very easy. Marshawn Lloyd rushed for over 150 yards in the last game. The problem with Colorado, and I'll continue to say it, is they can't run the ball and they can't stop the run. And if you do that and you're like a one-dimensional team, USC can just pound all they want. And then they got Caleb if they want to throw the ball, and probably one of the best offensive attacks through the air in the wide receiving core that USC has. So USC wins this one big by at least 3 touchdowns. They might give up a late touchdown to like the scrub, but I'm thinking actually it's probably going to be a 52-17 score. That's what I've been saying all week. I'll stick with it.
Tim, do you have any idea what the line is? Isn't it like 25 or something?
I think it is 25.
Yeah.
Looking at this one, I really think that Colorado is going to come back out stronger and look a lot better. I think they got embarrassed last week. I think they got a little bit of a reality check, and I think they're well coached. I think they're well prepared. And now that the balloon has kind of burst, I think they will come back focused and play well. So I would like to see USC, roll this one, I don't know, 62-14 or something. But I think Colorado will play respectably. And even though I think it's going to be USC to win, USC to cover, hopefully, I still think that Colorado plays respectably, and it'll be a fun, interesting game to watch. Friend of the show, Genetics56, who's been here on the Voice of College Football community before on the channel, come to visit us, asked me to chime in that he's hoping that Caleb Williams makes a 50-yard run and strikes the Heisman pose in front of the camera. Oh. So Genetics, I would love that as well. That would be that would make my day, a little Heisman pose. That'd be pretty fun. All right, guys. Well, by the way, guys, after the game, if you are in the area, this is an away game, so you can join LBC Trojan and guests live at Tustin Brewing. So if you want to become part of our USC Voice of College Football community, we would love to have you there. So that's going to be at Tustin Brewing for the folks anywhere near Orange County. It'd be fun to have you guys.
And I'm going to have confirmation tomorrow before noon. I'll tweet it out. Follow me on Twitter. I'll tweet out who's going to be attending, and I have a very good feeling that you will enjoy this next guest this coming Saturday at Tustin Brewing.
So that'll be a lot of fun. And thanks, obviously, for setting that up. That's going to be really cool. So we're looking forward to it. All right, guys, power rankings. And real quick, we're about to do our power rankings here. But before we do, and I'll put the link in the chat, we would love to hear what you guys think about the Pac-12 this week. So I'll put that in the chat real quick. But as we get ready to start our power rankings, guys, once again, 11 and 12 are unanimous. Is there any hope for ASU and Stanford?
None.
I think there might be some hope for ASU, but I don't think it comes anytime soon. Like, if they get healthy and Dillingham does what is the guy that some people think he is on offense, I can see them stealing some games later in the year. Maybe I'm not going to look at the schedule right now, but I think the schedule gets harder, though. I think that's the unfortunate part for them, if I remember correctly. But I can see ASU becoming a more respectable team as the season goes on, whereas with Stanford, I think it's going to take a lot longer. But they're still both obviously a class below the rest.
Especially by getting healthy, you mean getting their freshman Rashada back in. I think that'd be a big boost for them now that Dillingham's calling the plays.
All right. Next up. And I'll tell you, we had a little bit of a shakeup this week here because we had our unanimous, both San Francisco and both Arizona teams at the bottom. We've gotten a little shakeup. Tim, you're giving some love to the Bears.
Just because I know they play defense and they're finding an offense. And again, you're still going to see it 7 through 10. Well, more like 7 through 9 are a bit, they're really fluid. I think the top's starting to shape up a little bit, but this part right here is still very fluid.
All right. Next up, we see 8 filling in. No love for the Buffs, guys. Do they really have any hope to come back and make kind of a run here, or are they kind of regressing to the mean?
What do you consider a run? Like winning 6 games, or like,
I don't know. Could they make it? Could they raise themselves up in the chart possibly? Or are they going to get rid?
Could they raise themselves in the chart? Maybe, but not more than like 2 or 3 spots. If that, just because the conference is so loaded. But I still think they play everyone below them, or maybe not all of them, but at least like 3 of them. I think it's hard. I think they're better than those teams if everyone's healthy on both sides and whatnot, except maybe Cal's defense steps up or something. But so yeah, I mean, I see them being like a 6-6 kind of team, but do I see them like going bananas and doing something crazy and being in the top 4 or something? No.
All right.
Yeah,
next up. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say they're at best a 6-win team, but I see them winning 5 games. Their last 2 games are on the road. And when you have a team that can't run the ball, can't defend the run, that's thin, how healthy is Shedeur Sanders going to be? And then you got to finish those last 2 games at Washington State and at Utah. Both of those teams are playing for something. That's a tough way to end the season. So it's going to be challenging for Colorado.
All right. Next on the list, UCLA. So I believed in the Bruins more until their offensive performance last week, and it was kind of abysmal. Tim, you are still showing the Bruins some love. What are your thoughts?
Well, because I don't see. I'm sorry. They're easy to get mad at me, but I see more of UCLA lost that game than Utah won it. I mean, they both, and UCLA, you guys play some pretty good defense. They really are playing some good defense. I also believe that you can see more. Yeah, he had that horrible pick to start the thing off with. I think you got to slowly ease him in. You have a run game, use it effectively, and then open it up with the freshmen, especially when you're on the road. I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to tell Chip Kelly how to call a game, but that was a bit weird. I do believe in this team. I think right now I have them ahead. Remember, this is a power ranking right now on the field. Who I think would beat if we just put 2 teams together on a neutral field. And I really, it'll be interesting to see UCLA when they play a Washington, right? And their defense that'll be or their offense, and see how good their defense is when they play a USC or an Oregon. But for right now, I'm liking their defense, and I'm buying the Kool-Aid.
I hope we get to play Oregon or Washington.
Well, that's true, huh? Oh, yeah. Well, I'll tell you what. When you see Washington State, not
right,
as much Oregon State.
And that's
when you see Washington State, then we'll know. You're right. You guys don't play them.
It's not even that I think that we're like, okay. Well, we couldn't block Utah's front. Our offensive line looked bad.
Very bad. Yeah.
I guess the question is that an outlier, and is Utah's defense is it the best defense in the conference, or are we going to look like pretty pedestrian on offense multiple times? I like to think that we figure some things out, but that was not a good sign. There's an optimistic case, which is the defense and the front 7 is good, and Utah's a hard place to win. And if, a couple balls get caught, or if Moore sees guys wide open in the end zone when he's running for his life, then, we steal that game. And there's a pessimistic outlook that is like, we have a freshman quarterback. He is going to play like a freshman some games. Our line isn't that good, even though our skill guys are great. And we're just not going to be the same kind of offensive team that people have grown accustomed to the last couple of years. And I don't think we know that answer. I think we'll have a really good idea about that answer after they play Washington State at home, who I think, I said last week is the most underappreciated team in the conference. And I still think that's true. Like Washington State and Oregon State the 2 weeks after that, then we'll actually learn something about what the Bruins might actually be.
That's fair. But again, I'm Chip Kelly should be able, and yes, I do. I think does Tafua or and Larry will correct me on it, but they have a nasty front seven, and that they're penetrating. But then again, so do a number of teams in the Pac-12. They've got really good front sevens. It's been upgraded, but we'll see.
All right. Next up, Oregon State, who the Beavers are a darling. They're a favorite of the show. But after that Wazoo loss, they fell a few spots. Any quick thoughts on the Beavs?
To me, they just they're not as good on each side of the ball as I thought they were. I'll keep it simple. They're without going too much detail. Their defense isn't as good as I thought, and DJ's struggling. They came on strong. I'll give it to them. They fought, and they're still a solid team, but I was expecting more. They're on the road at Martin Stadium, and they a hell of a comeback. Just came up short, but I'm not seeing one of the better defenses in the Pac-12, and that's why I thought they would be.
All right, number 5, Washington State. And Tim, you got some good points there for the Cougs. And I agree with you. I thought they looked good last week. You got them at number 4.
Yeah.
What did we learn about them?
There's Cam Ward, period. That offense, but that they get all the highlights, but the defense is also stout. I don't know how they're going to do against, again, we'll see these defenses when they play some of the top offenses, but they're looking great. I would take, so look below that list right there. I'm taking Washington State over all those teams right now if they played on a neutral field. That's why they're there.
And it has to be Cam Ward. He's, now everybody knows in the country who Cam Ward is. He's really coming into his own. He was slinging that ball. He got the lead for the Cougs at home, and give it to Oregon State for coming back and making it close to the end. But the difference in that game was Cam Ward. He was in command of the offense. He was dynamic. And it's good to see him having the season that he's having. Another undefeated team in the Pac-12 with a very exciting quarterback. He's gonna be a problem for whichever team faces him.
It's gonna be an interesting one. All right. Next up, we got some variety here on the Utes. Chris, I know they beat your Bruins. You are very high on the Utes this week. Number 3.
I got tired of putting them at 5 and 6 all the time when all they do is win games with a pig farmer at quarterback and then a different guy at quarterback. And
True.
At some point in time, even though they are not they've beaten a bunch of Power 5 teams, more than most people in this conference have, or maybe the most. I understand that Florida people thought might be down, but they did beat Tennessee. I know Baylor's not good, but it's still a Power 5 opponent on the road. They made us look. I haven't seen our offense look that bad under Chip Kelly ever. I think their defense is really good, and they're only going to get healthier. If this is the worst they look all year, I don't know. I think they just keep finding ways to win games.
The problem with Utah is, like I said, they got a really great defense, but there's spectacular offenses that are in this league that are going to make that really good defense not so great. And when Cam Rising comes back, then we'll talk. Then this will change. But until they get an offense, that's where I have them.
And what's funny is that we all have Utah above OSU, and we all picked Oregon State to win that game.
That shows you the of how Utah
Not
played.
not everybody. and it's not a situation where that's why I have them, because of how they played, and their defense really. Someone said something about it was Clint said that they can't stop the run, but they still they still put up 500 yards against you. I mean, that's insane. And I thought OSU was supposed to have a really good defense, and here you have Washington State just going nuts. So
I'll tell you for mine on that one. I just, as a Trojan, I've learned I try not to pick against the Beavs in Corvallis because wild things happen in Corvallis.
Well said.
Just like I try not to pick against Utah in Salt Lake. And what happened when I did? What happened when I trusted UCLA to win the game? You're welcome, Utes. I cursed the Bruins, and you could win.
I tried helping you. You were sold on UCLA.
It's true. You did.
I still think
warned me.
I still think UCLA should have won that game. They fumbled going in on the 5-yard line. They throw a pick six in the beginning. I mean, and my reasoning was because I just think that with the injuries and banged up people, and I actually thought that Rising was going to play in that game. And it turns out he was so banged up he still didn't even play in the game. So I mean, they did win that game, but I mean, watching it, it looked like two struggling teams, but it looked like UCLA gave that game away more than Utah beat them on the field.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you 100% on that, Tim. All right, guys, coming up next, we've got a little bit of consensus here. The Oregon Ducks coming off a spectacular win up in number 3. Chris has got them in number 2. I don't know. I thought they just couldn't have looked much better. What do you guys think?
I thought the Ducks played the game they needed to play. They had a great pep talk by Land Danning. What do you talk about? We play with our pads. They play for clicks. We play for wins.
Which was being broadcast on every social media site in the world as he said it.
I liked how his chest puffed out. He had the underbite going. The eyes were like just glazing. I mean, he was in full force. He was giving it up. He was channeling his Barney Rubble. I mean, his Kirby Smart. He was really channeling it in the locker room, and he had the cameras all ready for it. And credit to Oregon, they just took it to Colorado. And you saw during warm-ups, Colorado was talking a lot of smack, which I couldn't believe they were doing that. They got baptized at Autzen, and the whole country saw that. And let's hope they get baptized again in Boulder.
Yeah, I'll just put it this way. I challenge any Duck fan right now. Go pull an old In Living Color skit up of Fire Marshal Bill, okay? And just watch it. Just watch Fire Marshal Bill in all his glory. And then pull up your buddy Danny and watch that speech. And if you can, put them side by side and watch Fire Marshal Dan go to work, okay? Because I was watching it in real time and just those little dream bubbles. I went off and I'm seeing Fire Marshal Bill and Dan Lanning, the way he just fake energy that thing. And by the way, he's not going for clicks. He's about clicks, really. That's why he releases his pregame speech to everybody. Yeah, I'm sure he's really trying to keep it low key. So I have Oregon there because, all jokes aside, they're playing great ball on offense. But who of all these teams, really, who's anybody played? So I'm still not sold on the defense. Looked great against Colorado, but you had Shedeur Sanders coming in there. That guy's never seen an environment like Autzen before. I'm sure he was a deer in the headlights. That offensive line's horrible. We're going to see in a couple of weeks when the rubber hits the road, when these guys actually start playing each other, then we'll know who the top 3 are. This is just pretty much a good guess right now of where we think they are. I'm going on roster, and even though they have according to 247, which always gets it right, as we know, they have the best roster, but I'm not seeing the best roster.
All right. Next up, in a fall from grace due to a little stub toe in the desert, we've got the Mighty Men of Troy. Chris has got him at 4. We dropped him down to 2. I think a little apprehension after the desert guys.
Chris, is that what you call the curve? Is that the curve?
What do you mean? I've had them at I think I had them at 1 very earlier in the year, and they've been kind of sliding down. For each week, they still haven't played someone and don't look they haven't had their week as much as like Oregon has had a couple of times, just like absolutely embarrassing someone. I'm not saying they can't do that, but there were some plays in that ASU game that made me kind of worry about the whole like, are you going to tackle people situation? I mean, the ASU running back is like pretty sick. But like that one play down the sideline for like 50 or 60 yards where the DB just like bounces off of him. I don't know. It reminded me of like the things that you were worried about as an SC fan that you don't want to have be true. It doesn't mean that that's like necessarily how it's going to be all year, but they haven't shown it yet, right? So that's why I have them where they have them.
Well, I mean, now, Chris, you like points per drive, right, as a metric?
I mean, sure, I guess.
So they're not stellar, but they're 32 in the country, and their net's even higher than that.
Yeah, I'd rather have like opponent adjusted stuff, but I think that's the question with SC, right? Like, and same thing with UCLA until last week, but even against Utah's offense, like our defense is number 1 in yards per play. Like in the country, UCLA's is just, and that's excluding FCS, so it doesn't even count our FCS game that we dominated. But like if you put it in the context, like we're number 1 in yards per play, but I don't think we're the best defense in the country. Like it in part has to do with who you're playing against. But sorry, go ahead. No,
I'm just saying it's just early this season. A lot of stats are skewed, right? Because they're not playing anybody. You know what I mean? Most teams are playing FCS schools or Little Sisters of the Poor. Some teams out there actually have played some things, but most teams haven't. I'm just saying, I'll bet you looked at that last year, even against the crap that USC played early on. I guarantee you they were in the 70s or 80s or 60s in that range. This defense is not as good as I thought it was. I still think they have a lot of room to improve. They're playing young players. They're still gelling, I'm sure. That's why in the beginning we thought this schedule was a horrible schedule, but it's been a blessing. I mean, I'll bet you if SC went up to Austin, they're losing that game in week 2-3, but we got time to get it better. And yes, they gave up 28 points, but like you said, 2 guys missed tackles. That was on 4th down. They make that tackle and then it's turnover on downs. USC hands the ball over really uncharacteristic. USC doesn't turn the ball over. They certainly don't turn the ball over on the 12-yard line. So, I dropped them because their defense looks very suspect. I'm not remotely as confident as I was about USC going undefeated. Seeing their first road trip look like that, which should have been the easiest road trip and will be the easiest road trip of the year, barring maybe Colorado. So, there's some tough road games for USC coming up, and if they don't get their crap together, it might be a long season.
All right, and unanimously, guys, for once, unanimously, the number 1 team in the Pac-12 bow down to Washington. Bum, bum, bum. Huskies looked good. What do you guys think?
Well, they still gave up 500 yards on defense, but I think they had like 900 on offense every game. So I mean, it's gonna be like that. No one talks. It's funny. Nobody talks about how bad their defense looks. I think there's still some issues on defense for the Huskies, and but they just look good. They consistently look good. And of all these teams, I know that Michigan State's nothing special. They're rudderless and everything, but to go on the road, to travel that far into a hostile environment, even if they are reeling and pull off that win, they're just consistently blowing teams out like they should. You got to give them respect.
Yeah, they're the real deal. They stood out based on their schedule to this point. I believe they have a bye on both Oregon and Washington have a bye on the 7th. And then on the 14th, they're playing up in Seattle. And that is going to be an unbelievable game. We're going to get to see who's real. And the slight edge is going to go to Washington with having that game there, but that's going to be the first heavyweight fight in this season in the Pac-12. Looking forward to it.
All right. Well, guys, those are the power rankings for the week. So we've got a call we're about to bring on, but hey, we would love to chat with you guys. So we want to hear what you guys think about the Pac-12. So the link has been put in the chat. We'll put it back in there in just a sec. You can come in with with any video or audio browser, or you can call us directly on the phone. Tim has got a fantastic phone line set, and he'll let us know if anybody shows up. But our first caller, we got Jeffrey from Only Talk Sports. And if you guys aren't following Jeffrey, you are missing out. Jeffrey, welcome to the show.
Glad to be on. I really appreciate that. Have to point out, though, Tim bringing up In Living Color, Fire Marshal Bill, that stuff's hilarious. That Jim Carrey, I mean, my dad showed me that a few years ago, and I mean, I love classic television. That's some funny stuff. But to get to the actual action, though, on the football field, like I did last week, I guess I'll run through the games real quick. Utah, Oregon State, it's a travesty that game's on FS1 on a Friday night at 9 o'clock. I cannot believe that game's on FS1. That should be the big noon game. I know at USC being the brand that they are, and then Colorado with Deion Sanders and everything, I get why that's the big noon game. But Utah, Oregon State's the game I'm looking forward to. I picked Oregon State last week, and unfortunately, they did not pull it out in Martin Stadium at Washington State. That was a great game. And I was happy for Cam Ward because he is a great quarterback, and he's probably still one of the most underrated players in college football, even though clearly more people are figuring out about him. But Oregon State just didn't get the job done. But I do think that they're going to bounce back at home this week at Reser Stadium. They should beat the Utah Utes, I think. Is someone on the line?
No, we got that taken care of. That was a little technical glitch.
Okay. You're good. And then, so the next game, Cal, Arizona State. I feel like that Cal, with their defense, being capable at times and their offense kind of coming to life, they just look better than Arizona State on both sides of the ball. They should win. Now, I wouldn't be a bit surprised. The Pac-12 is the Pac-12. You just never know sometimes. But Cal, I think, definitely is better, and they'll win. So I got Oregon State and Cal. Oregon should easily beat Stanford. I mean, the Cardinals are pretty bad, unfortunately. So I got Oregon. Notre Dame Duke is a game that I'm looking forward to as well, because I feel like this is an awful game for Notre Dame to have off of that loss to Ohio State. And I still can't believe the words loss come out of my mouth when talking about that game. I thought Notre Dame had it. I picked Notre Dame to beat Ohio State, and I was feeling really bad for Will. That's all I could say after that game, because Notre Dame had it. The timeout was awful on that fourth down. They should not have called the timeout. But now you're going to have to play against an opportunistic Duke team, a team that's ranked, a team that believes. And after that loss to Ohio State, not just any loss, but the way they lost. And Notre Dame, I mean, they could come out flat and lose. I think Notre Dame will win. I'm going to give them another chance, just like with Oregon State. I think both teams are going to bounce back here. But Notre Dame beating Duke, that's going to be a really tough game, and it's probably going to be a one-score game. Washington should roll over Arizona. I know the stat line about Arizona beating top 10 teams in Tucson, but I don't see it. Washington's rolling over everybody. Michael Penix, he still should be in Indiana if IU had an O-line. Man, that guy is insanely good. USC, Colorado. As I said earlier, the big noon kickoff game should not be this game. It should be Utah, Oregon State, but the brands of Deion Sanders and USC is why. I don't think this game's going to be close. I picked Colorado to lose last week by like 10 on air, but off air, I was telling people I think this game's going to be a blowout. I just didn't want to, rag on Colorado too much to say that they're going to get destroyed because of how everyone was so high on Colorado. I just didn't think they had a shot with Travis Hunter out, and Otson's insane. Bo Nix is reliable now, unlike what he was at Auburn. He's much better. Just Oregon, I felt like would beat them by a lot, but that game was even worse than I expected. And even though USC's defense is questionable at times, they should roll over Colorado more than likely. That's what I think. Probably by at least the spread, 21 points or more. I think the spread's 24 now. But those are my thoughts on every single game that you had up on the slides.
All good thoughts. What do you guys think?
Jeffrey
nails it.
Great job, Jeffrey. You know what? You got to be happy for Michael Penix, because if he would have stayed at Indiana,
yes,
he probably would have thrown for 1,700 yards a game. I'm sorry, 1,700 yards during the season. That's what happens to the Big Ten. So he came out to the West Coast, and he's in a high flying offense, and the guy's doing well for himself. You know
Oh,
what?
I'm happy. I'm really happy because, I mean, when he was in Indiana, I always was, when I watched him play, I knew he could be better than even he was doing at Indiana. The O-line was poor. He was putting up insane stats at Indiana for what most Indiana quarterbacks have ever done. And, like, under pressure, he was getting hit all the time. And, like, his passer rate under pressure was some of the top in college football. I just felt like he was so much better than what we were seeing. And when he went to Washington, a lot of people were not high on him. They were like, oh, Michael Penix, he's not going to stay healthy and he's going to struggle. I'm like, no, I think as long as he's protected, which Washington, to their credit, has done for the most part, he's going to ball out because Kalen DeBoer is a great offensive coordinator. He's a great coach now at Washington, and he's doing exactly what I expect. He's actually doing even better, really, than I expected. But when he first transferred, nobody was that high on him. I was, because I knew that he was capable. And like you said, I prefer him to be at Washington. I'll still credit him as an Indiana quarterback, though, / Washington in the NFL. I'm not going to give it all to Washington. I'll be like, IU / Washington, but Michael Penix deserves what he's doing out there. He's a great quarterback, and I'm glad he's getting his shot.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Jeffrey. Any final thoughts here?
I appreciate you having me on. I mean, I'm thinking that these games are going to be solid. I mean, this week overall is not week 4. Week 4, just the amount of games, the ranked games, not all of them panned out. But this week, maybe not as many headline games, but still a solid week and a lot of games that probably at the beginning of the season, people maybe weren't expected to be as good of games. I don't really think many people were looking at Notre Dame Duke being that, headline of a game, but it could be really good. I hope for Colorado's sake and for their fans they don't get completely destroyed, but fight on. USC, they should roll, and I'm just looking forward to the games overall. Like I said, not as big of a week as week 4, but I think that week 5 still some pretty solid games, especially for us diehard fans that watch no matter what.
Hey, I love it. You guys, if you're not following Jeffrey on YouTube, you should be at Only Talk Sports. Jeffrey, as you can tell, is brilliant and awesome, and we are always blessed to have you with us. So thanks for calling in.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate the kind words. And again, fight on. And for Colorado fans, don't get destroyed too bad. Thanks for having me on.
Fight on, Jeffrey.
Flashing the deuces. Nice job, Jeffrey.
Yeah, he's part of the family now. We like
it. Well, I got to support who's going to win. They're going to win. And if they don't win, then my mind's going to be blown.
Jeffrey, we got to get you out for an SC game sometime.
That would be awesome. All right.
We'll see you soon. Take care.
You too, guys. Thanks for having me on.
All right. Up next, we've got Larry Pilgrim. And by the way, you guys are not following his Twitter and YouTube at Pac-12 Pilgrim. Larry is awesome. Also a good friend of the show. Larry, your Utes have got a big one this week. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm thinking this is going to be kind of like the 2018 conference championship game where it's just straight defense, just like last week.
Hey, if it is, you guys have the defense to hold in there.
Yeah. I think, like I said, I've been saying all year, this reminds me of the 19 defense, except I think they're even better because Morgan Scalley now has 2 safeties that have the speed of corners and the strength of linebackers. So this defense is actually going to be the best that Utah's ever had, and we're seeing it. We lost 1 defensive tackle for targeting, so he'll be out the first half. And I'm sorry, Serge Peppa came back for UCLA. We got one of our defensive tackles back against you. So
yeah, well, it wasn't just one dude that we couldn't block. It was about 8 of them every play. But I hear you.
Yeah, and then as far as Rising, yeah, thanks Kyle for leading everybody down the wrong path. I mean, he went all the way to putting Rising in an outfit with pads and a helmet out there. So good luck with that. No, I have a feeling it's going to just be I'm sorry, DJU is Anthony Brown 2.0. I love you, Connor and Clint, but after watching that Wazoo game, I watched that, and Wazoo controlled that whole game. they had a 3-touchdown lead. They just started backing off, playing prevent, and DJ was just taking the easy dunks, and his guys were getting some stuff. That game was never in question. So I think Utah's going to get this one. I think Rick, what did you see that I put? They should run a cover 3 and run a 4-4-3 against Colorado.
No, I didn't see that.
Yeah, I think if USC runs that, they're gonna hold Colorado to probably 10 points, because I think you guys could easily dominate that game if you do that with the guys, the talent you have. You have so much speed in that, in between your secondary with your safeties and linebackers, and your front four, I think, is good enough. I think Shador's going to have a replicated game of what he did in Autzen, in my opinion. I think it's going to go pretty much the same, except I think USC is going to score a few more points than Oregon did. So
well, it's funny you mentioned everybody on the show here has USC rolling. I said by 17 just because I don't want to jinx anything. There's a great opportunity for USC if you look at it on a national stage. They're in Boulder. It's kind of like, okay, we're here. We're playing a team on the road, even though they did lose handily to Oregon, but it's big noon kickoff. You're going to be there with a pregame show. Everybody's going to be there. And this is an opportunity to basically double down, make some money, and introduce Caleb Williams as the Heisman frontrunner, taking out Shedeur Sanders and leading up to those epic games against rising, hopefully, Sam Hartman, and later in the year versus Penix and Bo Nix. So this is fight number 1.
Yep. And so for the Pac-12, I think everything pretty much carries chalk. Obviously, the most contested game is going to be the Utah-Oregon State game. So I'm picking Utah on that, and I'm going chalk with everything else.
All right.
Nice.
All right, guys.
It's going to be
Good
fun.
luck.
Hey, thank you. Hey, good luck to your Utes.
It's going to be a great game.
Yep.
I would pick them if they weren't playing at Corvallis, because to my life, that thing is haunted.
Hey, I was very scared with us going up to the Palouse on a weeknight with a backup quarterback, and I think we did okay against Cam Ward.
You did. You guys looked good against him.
Yep. All right, fellas.
All right, you're probably going to do it again. You're going to prove me wrong.
Larry. Thanks for calling in.
Get to you, Larry.
Thanks.
We'll see you soon. Take care. Say hi to the missus for us. All right. Next up to bat, we have Mr. Bow Down to Washington himself, friend of the show, Sergeant Pickles. Welcome, Pickles.
How we going, guys? I got to be a little quiet. Some of the family's asleep, but yeah, just thought I'd drop in here, give my 2 cents at least. And of course, Tim, I got a bone to pick with you because I know you're trying to deflect from USC's defensive issues. I would ask you, when do you think the last time the entire starters for the Husky defensive unit have played in the fourth quarter? I'd like you to guess what game that was.
No clue. Why don't you let me know?
That would be Boise week 1. We have been so dominant that our team comes out, and yes, some of the starters play. But for example, Penix came out with 11 minutes left in the third, up 52-12 against Cal. And I understand people saying, oh, your backups, that it's a lack of depth. I'm like, well, we've had some injuries. Every team does, and I get it. But part of blowing teams out is that it's early enough in the season, you're resting guys. And that seems crazy because I know we're in the era of college football where, you're supposed to hang 70 on everyone. Mm-hmm. But it's kind of a weird place to be in as a Washington fan where you're expecting the worst and kind of bracing for it. And then you realize you're almost disappointed if they're not up by 40 at halftime.
Yeah.
Question for you, though. Did you guys give up 500 yards to Cal?
Correct.
Okay, so you can sugarcoat all you want. Question: in weeks 1, 2, and 3, when USU is playing 60, 65 guys, right, platooning defenses, going 5 deep at our linebacker by the first half.
Yep.
Were you calling and defending USC for not playing their starters?
Tim, I'm not a fan of your team. I'm not supposed to defend you. You are.
I'm just trying to make sure that you're being objective here.
Sergeant
Pickles.
Pickles makes a fair
get you.
point.
Yeah.
I get
I'm-
you.
I'm not.
That's why I didn't
pretending
know your
UW
starters were
is-
out in the third quarter in all those games because I watched the games, but I'm not. I don't watch your starters when you're platooning them. My point is it's early. This is early. It's no one really has played. Who's the most quality win we have in the Pac-12 at this point? We want to say Florida, and they're terrible. You know what I mean? What's the biggest win we have in the Pac-12? We're winning a lot of games. We did. Everyone won the games they should, and they usually normally lose in the Pac-12, so we're getting some respect. But there haven't been any really big tests yet on anyone's defense. And so we could pad stat and we can look at all the stats and everything. But at the end of the day, what we really want to look at is how they're looking at eyeball tests. And that's why I have you guys number one. I'm not ripping you too hard for that. The fact that, that you gave all those yards, we could say it was against the second, but you still gave up 500 yards to Cal, and if you want to be that kind of a defense, how many yards did they have in the third quarter?
I don't know the quarterly breakdown off the top of my head, but Cal scored, like I said, Cal went from, I think they finished with 31. They went from 12 points to 31 in the third and fourth quarter. So that shows you where they gave up all the yards. Come on, I got to start with something to talk a little trash. We're not even to the really juicy games yet.
Yeah, I got you. I
was actually Tim. I was gonna. Sorry. I was gonna say for Sergeant Pickles that, like, when you were saying you're just trying to see if he's being objective, and I was gonna say I think he's definitely not trying to be objective, and that's his point.
No. Objectively, the Husky defense. I mean, we knew it would be obviously the weaker of the two units, but I think it hasn't really gelled. It's got off to a better start than it did last year. It was very shaky to begin last season. They've had a little bit better depth at defensive back and a little bit more cohesion, but they've had Devon Banks and Asa Turner, two of a starter and a rotational guy. They've been out the last few weeks. And again, the backup should step up. They should play better. It's not like they should just get suddenly cooked for yards. But, it's hard to really build. You're looking to see that gelling and cohesion in these first few weeks, and it's been kind of a shuffling on the back end. But, yeah, it'll be a lot of fun. I'm not overlooking Arizona because of our previous history in the desert, as you say, but just like the thought of that gauntlet for Washington of playing SC, Oregon, and Utah, and then right after Utah playing the Cougs and Beavs basically back to back to back. It's going to be an insane end of the year for the Huskies.
For the whole conference.
Insane. Yeah.
The only big time quote unquote teams we don't see, I guess you could say Colorado to an extent and UCLA, but we play everybody else.
Yeah.
So you don't get to play the bottom half of the conference.
Well, we play Stanford no matter what. That's not really Stanford
and
Cal.
Arizona State.
I was making fun of UCLA and Colorado.
Yeah, what's up with that? The one time where Colorado would actually be a helpful win on the schedule, and we don't get to see them.
Hey, Pickles, let me ask you a question. Thank you for coming on the show, by the way. Appreciate you.
Yeah, of course.
You just mentioned that gauntlet you have at the back end. So what does that mean for that game against Oregon? How big is that game? Let everybody in the chat know. The two teams don't like each other. You each have a bye week, so it's fair. But how big is that game knowing what you have on the back end?
The only time the Pac-12 gets the scheduling right for once is when they give Oregon and Washington equal buys going into the game, thankfully. I see a lot of your boy, once again, Fight on Rusty said USC is everyone's Super Bowl. That might be true for most teams. It's not true for Washington. Oregon is our Super Bowl, and whether they want to admit it or not, we're theirs. Love you, Beavs. Love you, Cougs. Love playing you. But you know what it is. It's the biggest game on our schedule. We circle it every year.
It's always been your role to be the Kings in the North.
It has been. I mean, again, everyone likes to kind of shade away, and people accuse UW of only living in the past about pre-Nike Oregon, but it was USC UW for decades. The two dominant teams. So that's still a strong rivalry. Yeah, I mean. But UW Oregon, it's always been the Kings of the North, the Kings of the Pacific Northwest. We interact with each other's fans all the time because as far as pro sports teams, the majority of us are fans of all the Seattle area teams. So you get a lot of that crossover. But it's definitely for the the dominant program in the North. And a lot of times it's two different styles. But this year, I'm just expecting an old school, sling it down the field, all out shootout. And it'll be really exciting. I think it'll be a 1-score game in the end, too.
I hope we got I hope you get game day out for it too. They should be.
That's the rumor because, looking ahead and doing the Magic 8 Ball on the schedule, I think there's UNC is playing another ranked opponent, but I don't see any other big time matchups and definitely not a top 10. Fingers crossed both teams win this week.
Although being
a future top 10
being
matchup.
ESPN, they'll probably be like, but it's Mississippi State at Kentucky.
Well, there is a game in South Bend that possibly could have 2 top 10 teams.
Now, here's the problem. Notre Dame and Ohio State just played. Now, Notre Dame and Duke are going to play. Are they really going to put them on 3 weeks in a row?
Hey, I don't know. They had Colorado 5 weeks in a row.
I wouldn't put it past them.
Yeah.
I wouldn't put it past them. And I guess in this area of we're not even pretending that the new media networks aren't biased towards the big boy teams. But, it'd be kind of blatant favoritism as far as I'm concerned. And I know that obviously I would say that even if they were going to a totally different set of schools, but to go pretty much follow one team around the country to every game they go to, you might as well not have college game day. It might as well just be the Notre Dame pregame show.
Good point.
But yeah, I'd be excited. It's always a good time. They've come up to Seattle for a couple of Oregon games before. And unfortunately, it seems like every time game day shows up, it goes against the Huskies. So hopefully we can reverse that trend if it comes to be. But yeah, especially I'm still sticking by my prediction. Again, I think the Oregon game, it's not going to shock me if the Huskies lose a close one in Oregon, but I think they get it done. And I think the Pac-12 championship is a rematch. Huskies versus SC. One team undefeated, one team one loss.
That would be fun.
Yeah. It'd be a barn burner.
That would be fun.
Whoever wins gets the Heisman, I guess.
Nichols, if it's a rematch in the Pac-12 championship, are you going to Vegas?
We'll see. Let's see. What time of year will that be? Right at end of December?
December 1st would be the Pac-12 championship game, Friday night.
Yeah, like I got Twins on the way in the end of December. That might be a little too close to swinging that.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
Congrats. Good for you.
Fun times.
Yeah.
And I'm not exactly ready to pay for that many plane tickets, but it is what it is.
So that means that we'll have another season of Sergeant Pickles on late night little ones duty, helping our late night calls.
Yes, indeed. You'll have another go around of that coming up. But yeah, I speaking in the future, I've genuinely talked to my wife because I've never been to an away Husky game in my whole life. So I've actually made it a point to try and get down to Autzen and to LA to see a game versus SC coming up because I'm sure we'll meet pretty often in the future Big Ten. So that'll be exciting.
Yeah.
that huge Big Ten rivalry of USC and Washington.
I hope we don't, by the way, Sergeant Pickles, because I'd rather not play you in Oregon, and I'd rather play like Minnesota and Nebraska and all of these Big Ten West teams that I saw earlier this year.
Careful what you wish for. Big Ten West is not trying to disparage all my Big Ten.
It'd be
West
like
friends
playing
out there.
Utah it'd be like playing Utah last week every week.
Yeah, it would be like playing Utah the year when they don't have a good quarterback. It would be very, very
right, like last week.
Yeah, visually displeasing football, I think.
I did have a friend tell me, he said, I have degrees from Oregon and Johns Hopkins. And I never thought I'd say that I'm looking forward to an Oregon Johns Hopkins Big Ten lacrosse showdown.
Yeah, all the Big Ten fans keep bugging us about getting a lacrosse and wrestling team. I don't know if they can convince them to throw that in the budget, but you never know.
Yeah, they like their wrestling.
But yeah,
hey, congratulations again on the Twins coming. I'm excited for you and your wife.
Yeah, I'm stressed already, but it'll be all right. I got some future Husky fans coming. I won't have it any other way. I want them let them get lured in by the Nike shiny toys syndrome.
No Nike shiny toys, no Cougs. You got it.
Cougs I can live with.
I got the
Surprisingly,
dubs up for you right there.
I actually have more Coug family members than Husky family members, so that one I could live with. Especially with them not in the conference anymore. Yep, that one's workable. But,
well,
all right, I'll hop off, guys,
we love on the show. We love Pat Shun and Chancellor Chilton. They're both awesome too. So
yeah, I hope they get something good coming out of it. But we'll make it an Apple Cup to remember.
Good luck to your dogs this week.
I like it.
All right, talk to you guys later. Go Dogs.
We'll talk to you soon.
Pickles.
All right, Tim. I think you got our next caller.
Yeah, we did. We had Manuel, Colorado fan, very angry Colorado fan that had choice words for me to save it for the show.
Call back, Colorado fan.
He left. And then Eric. We had Eric, our very first Stanford caller. I guess
Stanford caller. Eric, call back. We need some Stanford calls.
I tell Eric, if you call back,
in fact, I believe
Manuel, the way you talk to me, I don't know if I'll be the front, but I will get you back in here.
We'd love to have you guys call. And hey, kudos to Tim. Tim, I just want you guys to know, I mean, nobody wants to hear like behind the scenes talk, but I want to tell you guys, Tim has worked his butt off to sort out some wild technical things so that we can have this actual phone call-in line so we don't just have to use the StreamYard. So kudos to Tim and a big fight on for helping set that up. We really appreciate that throughout the community.
And Manuel, I was just kidding.
Moving on next. We got Sean. What?
I was just telling Manuel, it's just kidding. Man. That guy's angry.
All right, we're glad to have you, Manuel. Go Buffs. And we got Sean Garner joining us. Sean, welcome to the show.
Glad to be here, guys. Yeah,
Sean, which games are you looking forward to this week?
I did want to pigeonhole, latch on to that last point. Some guys, the last caller made right at the end there. You guys do need to up your wrestling game. As probably the biggest college wrestling fan on this whole network, disappoints me to see us bring in four schools that don't have a program. You guys
tell your Spartans we want to see the water polo game up a little bit too.
Yeah, that's how the Pac-12 builds their legacy as the Conference of Champions. Just play a bunch of sports that no one else plays anywhere else in the country, and just win all the championships and then claim all the NCAA.
I'm excited to play basketball and baseball in your conference.
Sean Gardner, you got to have a little respect for California because it's the one state that has one championship for wrestling, and you do get a lot of
right
wrestlers from California that wrestle in the Big Ten. So be thankful that you don't have schools out here that actually wrestle, so you can import all of the talent from California.
That is very, very true.
Yes, it is.
Yes, St. John Bosco Prep, one of the tops in the country, and a couple of schools up there in the Fresno area that are great high school programs as well. But
Clovis, Buchanan, don't forget about Poway down in San Diego, Calvary Chapel. Servite has always had a good wrestling program the last 20 years. There's a lot of schools out here that have championship talent, especially up in the Clovis area.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I make sure to tune in to the California high school finals every single year, believe it or not. So just wanted to let you guys update the weekend in South Bend. It was phenomenal. It was fantastic. And my heart stopped about 6 times, I think, during the weekend. And yeah, it was just an amazing time. I'm
you were there for the tailgating and stuff, weren't you? At Notre Dame?
Yes, I was.
What did you think of it?
The atmosphere was absolutely insane. I looked around and I thought half these people weren't going to make it to kickoff. And but they're true Irish. They're real soldiers. They're they were raised right, and I was treated. I mean, I had a couple minor little instances with some fans, but for the most part, everybody was extremely civil and highly spirited during the day, and watched it. I was the only person making any noise during the last 1 second of game time. So go Bucks.
All right. Hey, what do you think about USC and Colorado coming up this weekend?
I mean, the only thing I'm interested to see is if Colorado can do anything to this USC defense. If they can buy Shadur some time, I think they'll be able to hit some plays on this USC defense, because that back seven is a little shaky for the Trojans right now. But I could imagine them just mowing the front line over, and it being not that dissimilar to what they faced in Eugene this weekend. But I don't think USC is in any danger of losing this game. Colorado's defense overall is terrible, but USC might be the one type of offense which they can do kind of okay against, because they're better in the secondary than they are up front. And I know USC likes to just throw it around a bunch, but yeah, it's not much of a – it's not – I'll be surprised if it's still a game in the fourth quarter.
I was just going to say, a lot of people are bumping USC's defense around, but Rick said you earlier they're number 3 in tackles. They're also number 1 in tackles for loss. So they're getting a lot of sacks. They got 8 sacks against Arizona State, and
that's bad. That's
been getting knocked around quite hard lately. And they can't. Their offensive line can't run block. They can't pass block. That's bad for your quarterback. I'm not being crazy. I'm wondering how many hits that kid could take before he's going to call it a day, because it might be pretty brutal.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're going to have to get real creative with their play calling. They're going to have to get that ball out really quick. And USC is probably not going to be like bringing a lot of pressure, because they won't need to in this game. So I mean, the hype train around Coach Prime might come to a screeching halt after this weekend.
From your lips to football God's ears.
Yeah. So is that you got up in is it in Corvallis this weekend? Yeah, on Friday night.
Yes.
That is.
And I mean, for our Big Ten fans out there, because you're from Big Ten country, going to Corvallis on a Friday night is like going to Iowa at night. Like crazy things happen there. Or going to Purdue at night. Same thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, as a Buckeye fan, I can definitely appreciate the treacherous areas of West Lafayette. We've had some miserable moments in that area, but yeah, this is I don't know, these are two similar programs, two very well coached teams that like to beat you up. And I don't know, I mean, I said last week, Kim here, I really liked Oregon State in that Pac-12 championship game. I said Cam Ward was going to have to play out of his mind for Wazoo to win, and Cam Ward kind of played out of his mind.
You were right, and he did.
Yeah, and I mean, he's like the most under talked about, underhyped quarterback in the country right now. I mean, he has the prettiest game.
I think he suffers a lot from the fact that he came in that same group with like Penix and Nix last year, right? And people were like trying to put him in as another big transfer that's gonna light the world on fire, and he really wasn't what some people thought he was going to be like last year. So in the same way that, like, I think, it took people half a season to realize that year 5 DTR last year wasn't the same as year 3 or year 2 DTR that people had watched, and that, like, kids can improve over time. Like, Cam Ward he's just better than he was last year. And I just, to your point of, is he like undersold or whatever, I think people just haven't caught up yet and haven't realized that he's played better, at least till this point in time in the season. He's just been better than he was. But I think people think of him as like the quarterback he was last year, which wasn't as good.
He also has the challenge coming from an FCS school, I think, in Incarnate Word. So it wasn't like he was coming from Indiana or from Auburn. So he came with, the people knew about him, but he didn't have the season that Nix and Penix had last year. And so now that he's starting to flash, people are starting to recognize it.
Yeah, and no one pays attention to Washington State really much, and they have no national brand whatsoever, other than being the flag that gets flown on game day every week.
There you go.
Yeah. So I don't know. I like Oregon State just because it's in the newly renovated Reser stadium, but that's one of the more interesting games of the week. I'm kind of bummed that it's on a Friday night. It kind of leaves a big gaping hole in a pretty empty Saturday.
Yeah, I like it though because I like having a good game on Friday night.
Yeah.
I mean, I wish we had some action tonight.
just give it give it about a month or so. We'll be there. That Waldo Stadium, I'm sure, will be rocking with about 3,000 fans to take down. What?
My little brother's the Bronco. We will have no Western slander on here.
Off topic, Western's absolutely horrendous this year, so
yeah,
I will.
It's not a good year.
But no, so yeah. Well, how do you guys feel about the USC game this week? I mean, do you guys feel like is there any degree of nerves at all for that?
I'll just tell you my personal opinion. If we blow that game, it's going to be a really long year.
Yeah, absolutely. And
for the other guys.
I mean, like, any surprise at all on the minor struggles with ASU this weekend? I mean, I think most people, I was anticipating you guys to win that by about 50 or so this weekend.
Somebody, and I don't remember who it was, somebody on Twitter said going into the desert after being on a bye is like going into work hungover after an all-nighter.
So true.
No, it is. It is. And as Sergeant Pickles told you, the desert is cursed. They haven't won in Tucson since 2013. They haven't won in Tempe since 2001. Get like the desert and Corvallis and Pullman are just like bad things happen there to good teams. So, you get out of there with a win, and Tim really articulated, I think, really well. Tim pointed out how close, a couple times, how close we were really to just having that be a blowout with some stupid mistakes. So, I always look at it too, and I say, as a kid of a coach, sometimes you just take the win and get out of there.
I don't know how much, but I think it mattered that Dillingham was calling plays for the first time.
Yeah, because he's kind of awesome.
Yeah. He's I mean, that should probably be a trend going forward. I mean, and I know he's probably transitioning a lot. Being a head coach is very different. You want to delegate a lot of those as many duties as you can, but you got to stick with your strength to a large degree.
Absolutely.
And
that's something that Lincoln Riley has done really well, is building a really like an executive team to run the program for him in a lot of ways.
Yeah. So it's like all the really great coaches do that. Urban Meyer was this amazing offensive innovator, when he first came in and worked his magic at Bowling Green in Utah. And by the end at Ohio State, he was fairly hands off in a lot of the day-to-day stuff. He didn't have, I mean, he would occasionally intervene when things weren't working on the offensive end, but that was not his deal. He was an overseer of the program, but Dillingham's probably not there yet, and Arizona State's certainly not what Ohio State was at that point. Okay. One last thought here. Washington, got to get this gambling bit in here. Washington only giving 18.5 to Arizona. I mean, is that line?
Is that all they're favored by?
That's the line I'm looking at right now. 18.5. 18.5 minus 107. And yeah, that line just seems insanely short. You guys keep talking about the weird thing, the voodoo on the desert there. I mean,
explain to me how USC is favored by 34 going into Tucson for a road game. And then to back it up. Now, granted, Arizona's a little bit better than ASU, but that's the line, 18.5.
That's what I'm looking at here. Yeah.
Wow.
That's it. Well, I think people are basically, and I'm not a Vegas bookie. I would hesitate to speak for one, but if I was looking at this game, I would say Washington's going to win by 40, or they're going to have a desert nightmare, and it's one of the two. I probably think they're going to win by 40, but
yeah, they haven't shown a lot of vulnerability this year. I haven't seen many chinks in that armor that say they're not going to put up 50 plus. And but all right, guys. Thanks.
Thank you, Sean.
Always appreciate the chat.
All right, have a great night.
Take care.
Hey, Sean.
Thank you.
All right, we've got David from Ohio. David, welcome. What are you thinking about the? Oh, there we go. What are you thinking about the Pac-12 this week?
Really enjoying the Pac. By the way, still basking in the great victory that the Buckeyes had this weekend. Just had to say that. I will not be here to insult an 88-year-old former football coach either. So I will not.
It's the cool thing. It's the cool thing to do. You got it's all over the country. If you saw it happen in the Pac-12 also with Washington State's coach.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hey, Dan Lanning was flexing this weekend. He was flexing. Well, you know what, Dan, I think went in fairly confident in that game. Let's be honest. I think Dion, and I did want to. By the way, I just want one last point, and this ties to USC. So I've got to make this point about the Ohio State Notre Dame game. If Day's play, which would have lost them the game, which he runs a jet sweep on that. By the way, every Notre Dame fan has been talking about all their missed opportunities. Ohio State had like 27 missed opportunities in that game. Their receiver dropped a sure touchdown at the end of the first half, but leave that out because that doesn't. Yeah, leave that out there, Notre Dame fans, because that doesn't help your narrative. I get it. It's not like Ohio State didn't have stupid mistakes too. You're the only one that's allowed to have stupid mistakes. But
David,
yes.
David, did you play with 10 players?
I hear you, but what if Ohio State? But Ohio State had stupid mistakes too, which I'm saying.
No, I get you, but of the stupid mistakes, those two on sequential plays.
Yeah, and one of them was the guy where they ran the ball at.
But that's the kind of stuff that we fired the previous coach for, and the guy named Paul Hackett for doing stuff like that.
Well, I just wanted to say, if we would have lost on running that jet sweep. You know what everybody was saying that they should have done in that instance?
I also point out that only Ohio State fans can win a fabulous game and still complain.
Well, but all I've heard is Notre Dame fans talk about their missed opportunities.
Actually, that's not true. USC fans can do that too. But go on. Sorry.
That door swings both ways is all I'm saying on the missed opportunities train. That's all I'm saying. I think it's a fair point.
All right. What about the Pac-12?
Well, just real quick, if they would have on that jet sweep, every Buckeye fan was begging for Bush push. We should have ran Bush push in that instance.
Why not? Half a yard?
End zone.
What are you doing?
Same end zone.
Same end zone. Exactly.
Same end zone.
Yep.
We
should
have ran
jerseys.
There you go. We should have ran Bush push. All right, now to the well, I just thought you guys would like that reference from
We love
USC
it.
past. A great
Always.
reference. There you
Always.
go. So, by the way, Tony, I can't believe you're yearning for Central Michigan and Toledo on a Wednesday night. By the way, that I find that to be
It's
interesting.
better than Law and Order.
Yeah. hey, I'm a big Ice-T fan. I don't know about you,
better
Tony.
Than Big Brother 47 or whatever's on. I don't know. I don't even know.
I'm an Ice-T fan. I don't know about you. I like me some SVU. I'm all about the SVU. All right, so let's talk about the Pac. By the way,
I will say that when there was a rumor of the Pac-12 being on Ion, I did wonder if my mother was going to fall asleep, how long into waking up to like Oregon State at Cal she would be before she realized it was not a rerun of Blue Bloods.
Dude, my dad tapes Blue Bloods. I think if you're a man over 65, you just love Blue Bloods. I think you have to love Blue Bloods if you're.
Tom Selleck lived in my fraternity house anyway.
Yeah,
so
there you go.
No Blue Bloods.
All right. Now let's get back to football. I hear you guys do that from time to time around here.
Sometime.
Yes. By the way, I think Dion realized, something that's going to be pretty rough sledding this next few games. By the way, I did pick Colorado. I thought Colorado could go 6-6 at the start of the season. I just want to say that, and I still think they can get there. Maybe they can get to 7-5. Which obviously, let's be real here. Everybody knows that's massive improvement. But I think what he realized this weekend is just, how much more he's going to have to build this thing up before he really gets it going. And particularly in the trenches is obviously where you see it. And that's, and I do think if you give him 2 recruiting cycles, by the way, I think he can eventually get there. I always say that, if you give a coach of that caliber to like 3 recruiting cycles, you're going to start to see some serious food on your plate. And plus college football is changing radically next year anyway. So with realignment and everything like that. So, but I just think you guys are going to club them this weekend. I'm actually thinking about, was it 22.5 or is it 23? Where's it at right now?
There's been some discrepancy on that. We've seen it all over the place, but Daryl thought it was 21.5.
It's 21.5 or 22 right now, I think.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about taking that, and I actually think the 73.5 is doable. I don't know what you guys think about that over.
It depends on what you think about USC's defense.
Yeah, I just hate numbers like this because I just don't that or like there's that question, Tim, but there's also the SC could probably put it up themselves if they want to. But
right, that's it. If they get ahead, they're not going to go ducks plug ears. They're not going full landing. They're not going to be going for it, on 4th down inside. When you're up 40 points, that they don't do that.
So Lincoln Riley's going to show some restraint there, Tim. Is that what you're saying?
I mean,
I think that you'll see. You're going to see Caleb hopefully out of this game early in the 3rd quarter. So I'm hoping.
Yeah, but I mean,
no, it's on the road. It's on the road. Listen, again, after watching USC on the road, they were having trouble. Here's the thing people don't remember also is we have Dedich now in there at center, and it got loud and the snaps were off. And there was a lot of weird stuff that went down, down in Tempe. So if they can't clean that stuff up, I could be talking all this for nothing. If they come out with a clunker like they did, and it's funny, we say clunker. Caleb had 5 touchdowns, right? They scored 42 points,
right?
Rushed for over 200, blah, 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 blah. So, I mean, but if they look clunky like that, he may not be out. But if they play their game, he'll be out early in the 3rd quarter. So will those numbers go up? Who knows?
I would have loved to have seen the Branch Hunter matchup in this game. Wouldn't that have been fun?
Yeah, that would have been cool.
Yeah, I mean, just to see, like 2 future NFL guys, I think that would have been like 2 ballers. That would have been fun to watch. See, I
imagine they would do what teams did with Woodson, is USC has such a wealth of receivers that I think if Travis Hunter was there, you would just not throw the ball to where Travis Hunter was, because the rest of the USC receivers are strong enough that you just take the other guys. I mean,
and he would be on Branch too. Yeah, he'd be on the outside. So
yeah, I mean, that was when Charles Woodson played for Michigan. That was the thing, is you just didn't throw there.
Yeah, he's gonna be the field corner too. You know what I mean? So so Branch is probably not. He won't be posted up on him anyway.
Well, it's kind of like the guy on the sideline for Colorado. Nobody ever threw his way either. Deion in his prime.
Exactly.
I think Shador, though, can put some points on the board on you guys, though. I mean, I'm not saying he's going to score 40, but all right, if you had to pick a point total for Colorado to score in this game, do they score north of 21 points?
Yeah. So here's the thing I don't understand. How much of that last week?
No, go ahead. I'm
What did
sorry.
you-
I didn't say anything.
How much of that last week was Shador? Again, we can't. You know, he's cocky. You know, he plays. He's balls out. But how much of that is a young, you know, not young, but you know, an inexperienced at this level guy going into a place like Autzen? You know, there's got to be an effect on him. Well, he's gonna be playing at home, so a lot of that's gonna be gone in this game. So a lot of that noise, a lot of that rough crowd for him, it's safe to say that he's never been in a stadium like that before. So how much of that was a young guy on the road for first time? Again, you know, an experienced guy on the road for the first time. How much is that? I don't think he's got a lot of time to throw. You know, Grinch in general likes to get pressure, and so you know, if they scheme right, I mean, just go take a look at what they were doing last week. If you get the ball to the perimeter, if you get the ball out of his hands quickly, that's fine. But he seems like a guy that likes to extend plays and roll out, and that's not what you want to do against this defense. So it'll be interesting to scheme. If they get the ball out of his hand quickly, then I think he'll be okay. And by the way, Pickles, always, man, I think you're awesome.
One thing,
and Sergeant Pickles, thank you for the super chat. By the way, we love Sergeant Pickles, and thanks for calling in.
One thing I noticed on the Oregon Colorado broadcast, I can't remember who was calling that game. Was it Tessitore and whoever was with Tessitore? I think.
Was that McElroy with Tess? No, I don't think that's the. No, McElroy's with McDonough now. I forget who's with.
Whoever was the color guy was saying that Shador Sanders, he would back up, but he wouldn't step up in the pocket. He kept on running backwards, and you can't do that against a team with a defensive front such as Oregon or USC. And so he's got to learn to step up in the pocket and get rid of that ball. Again, he's taking way too much abuse, but that's something else he's going to have to learn at this level, playing against better teams in the Pac-12.
See, you know, the thing about it is, and you know, that's where I think Deion's recruiting's definitely got to come in the trenches. I mean, obviously that clearly showed up in the Oregon game, you know, going forward, you know, because their defensive line, Oregon just, you know, did whatever they want offensively. I think you guys are going to drop somewhere in the mid 40s on them, maybe upper 40s on them. I just wonder if Colorado could score a little bit. I think the 73.5 is probably too high, actually, the more and more I think about it on the over in that game.
People don't realize how bad their defense is. I'm just going to say that. They just don't understand how bad. And like you said, for that reason, they're you know, they have skilled players on both sides of the ball, but their trenches are bad. And he's going to now remember what if he wins 6 games and gets them to a bowl, and he gets to walk into all those houses in North Florida and the South, and you know, and roll into Miami-Dade and talk to some of these kids. If he goes bowling, he says, "Look, I took this team from 1 win. Now we're a bowl team. You know, you sign with us." He's going to get those big guys. You can't do all that in 1 year. It's just too much. You know, the time he has a whole recruiting class. And if he hit that recruiting road with the high they're on, I think it's going to take a big hit the next couple of weeks. But by the end of the year, they can say, "Look where we were. Look where we've come to. Come to Colorado, and we're going to win." And listen. Talk about a salesman. That guy can sell ice cubes to Eskimos. It's gonna be a bloodbath. They're going to the Big 12 too. They're gonna out talent everybody in the Big 12. Utah and Colorado is just gonna be. They don't know what's coming.
Let's be honest. They could probably out talent about half of the Big 12 today.
True. Well, that's the one I was talking to a friend of mine about this. Utah is a matchup they definitely don't want to see this year. Because think about how traditionally tough Utah is in the trenches. Normally their strength is usually on both lines of scrimmage. So, I do not think that's a good matchup for Colorado, especially this year. Now, like you said, Tim, you give them a couple of years of recruiting. We can see.
I'd even say one full one coming up. I'm not saying it'll be a playoff team, but you watch how good they can get. Because remember, there's also the transfer portal. We're just thinking high school. You can bring in top quality linemen from everywhere. As long as they can give the story that they can win, no one wants to go to a loser, right? Sure. Kids probably sat back and say, "Hey, can Deion do this?" And if he shows that he could win and he's going, the hard sell he's going to have though is like USC had for a while at the Pac-12, do you want to go play in the Big 12? That might be a hard selling point. You know what I mean? For the top guys, but I mean, hell, I'm not holding anything against Dion. I think he can do it.
I do agree with your point though, David, about because I think even after week 1, I was saying on here the type of team I see Colorado just having a terrible day against is the Utah or Oregon States of the world, where they're not afraid to run the ball 19 times in a row and just keep shoving it down your throat because you can't stop it. Where against, and I guess that's sort of what's I expected them to score at least a couple touchdowns against Oregon. So the fact that they didn't at all was kind of interesting to me in that way. And I think that's what's interesting about this game is I think it's interesting if Colorado only scores 2 touchdowns or if they score 3 or 4.
That's true.
Because I think it says even though they're in different places and transitive property is kind of silly, I think we can learn a little bit more about SE's offense. And of course it depends on when the 3 or 4 happens, right?
Sure.
Not every 24-point game is the same, but that's what's interesting to me about this game. But I agree with you totally against games against Utah and Oregon State. It's just going to look ugly.
I'm going to call it right now. Zachariah Branch is going to run a kickoff or a punt return for a touchdown.
Okay.
This kid is a star.
I love it.
This is the biggest stage. He knows it. He's playing against Dion's team. It's on Fox. They're going to have stories about him and his speed, and this is the kind of player that, just my impression, that this stage is not too big for him, and he's going to shine. And it's going to be exciting to see this kid run one back because, let's face it, Colorado. There's going to be points in the game where they know they're going to get beat, and the one thing about this offense, David, is that there's a lot of explosive players on this team. You saw Marshawn Lloyd. He ripped off a 43-yard run against ASU. You look at Brendan Rice. He had the best game as a Trojan. He's got 12 catches on the year. He's got a 21.4-yard reception average. And Taj Washington, he caught a 76-yard touchdown pass. He's got 10 catches for 278 yards. That's almost 28 yards of reception. These guys, and Caleb gets it to them. So that's the thing. And then Deuce Robinson, freshman, he's got a 71-yard TD as well. So there's just so much depth in all the rooms that we're going to throw at Colorado come the second half. It's.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
I think you guys get into the high.
Well, David, Taj caught a 51-yarder in the last game. And then going back to what Rick's talking about running one back, I can totally see them out kicking the coverage in Colorado. And they're going to be booming stuff. I don't know about kickoffs, but punts, this might be the game where if they overkick the coverage and you give to Zach Branch, he is going to house it.
I got you guys at least in the high 40s, maybe low 50s in this game. I could see that easily. I did want to get to Washington. I wanted to say I was going to call to maybe I'm getting too far ahead of myself on Washington this year, but it's still early, but early in the season, I had them winning the Pac. Sorry, guys. And as a playoff team. And I thought last year they were the quietest 10-win team I'd ever seen in college. Did they win 10 games or 11 games last year? If I'm mistaken.
They won 11. They were 11-2.
Okay. Is that the quietest 11-2 team you've ever seen in your life, by the way, last year? I always thought that was.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And they were quiet. They had a chance. And Tony brought it up, but they went down to the desert and they lost at ASU. They win that game. They're going to the Pac-12 championship game.
Yeah,
that would have been fun to have them against USC too.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That would have been quite a game. But
everybody wants
the curse of the desert struck.
Well, who doesn't want to see a Penix Caleb Williams duel right now? Seriously. Would that not be that would reek of 56 to 59 or something like that. But I hate to see the over in that game. But I mean, bottom line, guys, is there a case to be made that Washington right now should be ranked even higher, maybe even top 2 or 3 in the country?
Yes.
And yes, definitely, based on what they've done on their field and what the numbers say about them and like how explosive they are. I know people like to talk about people know about their wide receiver group, right? But like they have like 3 NFL guys, and I know people like to talk about like Ohio State, NSC's wide receiver rooms, and a few other teams. And people talk about Washington's, and people know about it, but you don't like hear. I don't know. It feels different, right? It feels like, if they're wearing a different color uniform that's been there consistently, people are hyping it up even more. Offensively, they're amazing. And I do think that based on what the numbers say about them, I think there's probably a lot of models that have them higher than what their AP poll rank is.
If they were in the SEC, they'd be number 1.
I would tend to agree with that. I mean, they don't have a bad defense. I mean, everyone thinks about the Pac and bad defense, but statistically, I mean, that's not a bad defense. And I agree with you about the wide receivers. And I mean, I know you guys are Caleb guys, but is Penix right now the Heisman favorite?
I think it's
the betting favorite. I think he is, right?
I think it's too early to worry about it because that group of quarterbacks, particularly in the Pac-12, with Caleb and Penix and Bo, and people like to mention some others, but they're all going to play each other, and we're going to get answers to that.
Yeah, that's true.
So I don't worry about speculating it because I know we're going to get answers to that. Yep. And if somebody comes out of that sparkling, I think they should have it. Quite honestly,
yeah, it's gonna be the big games. It's gonna be the big games to shine. It won't specifically be stats, although I think Caleb's is gonna make it hard for him because his stats have to be have to be really good. When you repeat, if it's gonna be closer, I think they'll give it to somebody else. But he'll have opportunities to do it on the field, and if he lights up, think about it. He's gonna have Notre Dame,
right? He's
gonna have Oregon and Washington and Utah. All those games will be huge. If he plays well, and let's just say he runs those. Then who will be the Heisman favorite? If Penix runs the Pac-12, he's probably going to be. If Nix, goes undefeated, it's going to be that. Who wins the big games this year? It's going to be splashy wins. That's who's going to win the Heisman.
It's set up for Caleb as well. It's no loss November. You knock off Penix at home on November 4th. You go up to Autzen. You take care of bodacious Nix up there, and then you come home and you beat your rival UCLA. How can you not give it to him?
And then South Bend, though, too, right?
If assuming you knock off Hartman, correct. And we don't know if Rising's going to play or not, but you knock off those 4 guys. And, oh, by the way, Shedeur Sanders, he's a good quarterback. I don't put him at the other players' levels, in terms of a Hartman or a Michael Penix.
And he won't be buried. I mean, these big noon games, part of it is, it's not good playing at 9 a.m. local time, but there's going to be a lot of eyeballs on that game, and he's going to torch that defense, I think.
Gosh.
Tim, share with David, Tim. We see it all the time, but Caleb Williams to me is like playing in third gear. Like, he's not showing us everything, but he is amazing.
Right.
And when he's going to play for 4 quarters, I don't think there's a defense out there that can beat him. This year in college football, there isn't a dominant defense out there. And he set these ridiculous goals for himself going into spring camp. And now this guy's going to achieve it. I mean, he's throwing it close to 77%. He's got 15 TDs, no INTs, and I think he's got 3 rushing TDs now. And, he's probably played 70% of the snaps.
Yeah, maybe less. And another thing is how much of the playbook, you guys, do you think that Lincoln Riley has showed the world so far? Like in that one game, he was doing that rollout. It's like this new age speed option, and where he would run it and he could keep it, or he would just flip it out to his receiver. And you said it, that all the Dunze, Polk, and McMillan, those guys are great. But I mean, I don't want to bore you guys by talking about USC receivers. It's gonna be a battle, and like I said, I think it's gonna come down to who shows up on the big games. And we all know it's a team award as well. It's the MVP of the best team usually lately. So if the FSC wins, and they're gonna have I think I have them USC and Washington rematching in Vegas. And if that turns out, I bet you the winner of that one's probably gonna win it.
I could see that. Hey, by the way, last thing, Bo Nix is so old. He played against Justin Herbert. By the way, and Justin Herbert's been in the NFL for 3 years.
Wow.
Justin Herbert's been in the NFL for 3 years. Bo Nix actually played against him.
Oh my God!
Think about that.
That's funny. It's true though. You're right.
Yeah.
Wow. That's true.
Question though, has he graduated yet?
Yeah, Stetson Bennett was there for like 9 years and didn't graduate.
Well,
Miller Moss from USC already has 2 degrees in 3 years.
Tony, Sean Clifford's getting a pension from Penn State, I think. I think he's on Social Security, actually.
Yes, he's got a TIA retirement fund from Penn State.
Don't make fun of Sean Clifford. That's Mark Rogers' favorite quarterback, actually. He loves him some Sean Clifford.
We got to take it easy. He's going to get really his feathers get all ruffled in a moment.
It's true. It's true.
Great show, guys.
David, thank you.
Thank you, David. Appreciate it.
Thanks for calling.
Thank you, David.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Congrats to your Buckeyes.
Right on. Tim, we got anybody else in our queue yet?
No, we haven't had a call in like the last 15 minutes. Nothing.
All right. Well, on that note, guys, it has been fun. Chris, any final thoughts here as we get ready for the big week ahead?
Yeah, I'm going to bed. Good night. Thanks everyone for hanging out.
Go grab some lunch.
See you soon.
I'm looking forward to the SC game, and only because I've been being flippant a lot, and I talked about when we start seeing mutual opponents. Yes, it was at Autzen, but this is USC's chance to prove to me that there has been improvement on the defense, not just in a little way. And if they go in there and they hold them under 21, then that'll go a lot of ways to me thinking, all right, it was some young guys on the road, and they dropped the ball. The rest of the games, I mean, I don't know. It's a good slate, but it's like someone said earlier, it's pretty chalk. But I think we're gonna get to see USC at least show us that they can be dominant like Oregon did. And if they aren't, then again, you're gonna have more and more people coming out pitchforks for Grinch and his defense.
Well, think about it. It's going to be Friday night, Pac-12 after dark with Utah going up to Corvallis. I'm going to get like 6 hours of sleep. And then we got kegs and eggs. We got USC in Colorado at 9 a.m. with 7 a.m. the big noon show kickoff. So it's going to be a lot of college football in a 16-hour window. Gotta love it. The 2 best games, kind of late Friday night, early Saturday morning.
Well, hey, I'm looking forward to it. Hey, everybody, if you could just do us one last favor here as we wrap up. If you could just quick hit the like button just really fast. Makes a huge difference for Mark and the whole community. So we really appreciate that. And it just takes a second. I know it's dumb because everybody asked for it, but it makes a big difference. So, hey, it's gonna be a fun weekend. We have some good games. I'm looking forward to the Notre Dame game. I'm really looking forward to what happens with SC. We'll see if Washington breaks their curse in the desert. It's going to be fun. We'd love to have you guys join us right here in the Voice of College Football on the USC channel for our big talk with Brian Howell tomorrow that LBC is set up. So you can see LBC and Brian Howell tomorrow. You can find that on the USC channel. And then we'd love to have you guys join us afterwards for the USC postgame live. We'll be live right about 3:30 Eastern, 12:30 Pacific. So grab some lunch and join us on the USC channel. Everybody have a great weekend. I hope all your teams win, unless they're the Buffs. And as always, fight on. We'll see you next time.
Thank you. Good night.